Well, I've thought about all of this because it's weird to have the life I have. Uh, it's so strange. I mean, until I went into therapy, I thought I had the most ordinary family in the world. And then once you're in therapy, you discover, that no, it was the most insane scene you've ever heard of. And you just didn't notice. But, I've always been interested in nature, and I've always been interested in beauty. And I think it was the pursuit of beauty that served me best because when I was a kid, first I started out collecting rocks, and then I collected butterflies. And then in my emergent phallic phase, I was an amateur rocketeer. And the major thrill there was setting off these explosive fuels and watching the possibility of shrapnel and all this stuff. And then as I got into rockets, I got into science fiction. And science fiction, I really consider a proto-psychedelic drug because what science fiction does is it gives permission to imagine. It says, try it this way, this way, this way. And then as a kid, you get the idea, that anything is possible. That's what science fiction teaches you. And then, and I was really obsessive about science, and I wanted to be an astronautical engineer, and Wernher von Braun was my hero and all that. And then it sort of flipped at some point, and I got in, and I decided that I had been terribly narrow, and I was figuring all this out for myself. I was in some little town in Colorado, and I decided I'd been terribly narrow and that it was all in the humanities. And I began reading Henry James and all this stuff. And I was into Aldous Huxley as an example of an English novelist, and read Antique Chrome Yellow, After Many a Summer Must Die the Swan, and so forth and so on. And then came upon The Doors of Perception. And just, I was like 14 years old, and it was astonishing. And I said, if a tenth of this is true, then this is the most amazing thing there is. Well, if you've read The Doors of Perception, it's actually a terribly conservative gloss. I mean, it's all about looking at pictures and seeing the iskite in the folds of your trousers and thinking about how that relates to Meister Eckhart and all this Huxleyan type stuff. But that gave me the idea. And then I stuck with it. Somehow and found marijuana, and that went on to LSD. And then my great good fortune, I think, is that just a few months after I took LSD, somebody brought me DMT. And DMT is a miracle. I mean, DMT is like something that fell out of a flying saucer. I mean, it is so strong and so psychedelic. I mean, I can't imagine being more smashed than that, or wanting to be. I mean, it's more like a near-death experience than any near-death experience I ever heard anybody describe. They sound absolutely pedestrian compared to a DMT trip where, you're sure you're dead. You say, what the hell else could it be? And then I went to Asia. I was at Berkeley when I had all these drug experiences. And then I went to Asia and tried to find it with yogas and all that, and ended up smoking a lot of hashish and becoming more cynical than ever about spirituality, and just saying, hashish and LSD. That was, before I went to the Amazon, that was what I discovered that really convinced me you could get somewhere, was, take a bunch of LSD and then smoke great hash on top of that, and really crazy things do go on. And then I went to the Amazon, and, incredible shamanism is happening there. I mean, they don't hold back. The method I used in India was, I would just say, what can you show me? I've read all these books. I know how to manipulate all this multisyllabic mumbo jumbo, but just one thing. I say, very pushy. But then when you go to South America, then they just say, okay, let's go out in the forest. We'll get the stuff. We'll cook it up. And tonight we'll show you our best trick. And it slams you to the wall. I mean, you plead for mercy. And it was a vindication, because the thing I want to stress, and I don't know if it's as important to you as it is to me, but you do not have to sell out to any form of airheadism. You can be as tight-assed as you want. You can be as hard-nosed as you want. You can be as demanding, analytical, rational as you want. And the thing is bigger than you are. It'll just take you apart. It'll make you weep like a baby. So there's nothing about faith and sensitivity and reaching. And no. When it comes, it kicks in the front door and takes you prisoner. It's and that was what the flying saucer meant when it said, because you didn't believe in anything. This is the way to get somewhere. You'll never get anywhere if you believe in stuff, because, it'll take you 6 months to work through Babaji, and then you have to go on to somebody else. And life is just not long enough to give all these guys a crack at your enlightenment. So, you sort of have to goose it along. And the great vindication is then that when you behave like that, when you take that stance, which you would expect would betray you into nihilism, depression, and so forth. Instead, no, that's works. That's the method. Then the gold, reject everything but gold. And you know what gold is? It looks like gold. It feels like gold. It's not something that you have to, I'm amazed at what thin soup is dished out as spiritual food. And it's because we are, as individuals, conflicted, I feel this in myself. It's hard to take psychedelics. It's not hard to sweep up around the ashram, but it's hard to take psychedelics.